Hey there, everyone. Andrew Lopez at Partner Channel OC. Very excited to be back. I love doing all these episodes where I come on site now. So, Paul, thank you so much for letting me come to your office and be in your space.
Of course.
I have the wonderful Paul Bresenden here with 454 Creative. Excuse me. Paul, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
This is cool. I like the office. I like the TVs. I like the scenery. This is a cool spot. So, Paul, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Relatively interesting background. I'm number 7 out of 9 kids. My parents are Russian immigrants. I'm a first-generation immigrant. I guess that applies. My parents immigrated in '75.
Uh-huh.
I was born here. 4 of my brothers and sisters were born there. My dad was a pastor in the underground church and was one of the first Christians to leave Russia during that period because of religious persecution.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of a crazy story.
Yeah, that's a really crazy story. I couldn't imagine.
I find it hard to imagine too. In many respects, I grew up as an American,
Uh-huh.
and you hear lots of stories like that, and they're a little bit more real to me because it's my dad. But I grew up with my dad. I like knowing my dad as a general contractor, not as a social dissident or whatever you want to call that process. It's a really crazy story of hearing him like describe his own life. He's had some amazing experiences of just incredible stories that you can't relate to anything but, I don't know, supernatural experience.
Yeah, just imagination, right?
I
I mean, hearing what he has to say and just kind of trying to picture what he's gone through, what he's seen.
He was in concentration camp for 3 years because of that, because he was a Christian and pastor in an underground church. And then my dad helped get political asylum for 2 million Russians to leave before the fall of communism. So it's a crazy story. It's like, and I still have trouble wrapping my head around that kind of like thing. And it almost feels like it's not that story because I've always known my dad as a general contractor, not as that.
Wow, that's a pretty powerful story. Well, we're all glad you're here and glad that you had a good life here, right?
Yeah, he left to have a different set of opportunity for his life, for his kids and his family, and for the community that he was a part of. And here we are. In many regards, I feel very fortunate in that. I don't know. I wear contacts. I'm very blind.
Mm-hmm.
Probably in that environment, wouldn't have had the chance to go to school, and it does make you really grateful and aware of how much in our life is due to environment, and like it makes you be a lot more generous and grateful with other people because we're not as in control of our lives as much as we like to think we are.
Mm-hmm.
I would very clearly be the village idiot if I was still back in Russia because I wouldn't have had those opportunities that I had now, and to start a company and have the economic opportunity that exists in where my parents as Russian immigrants who didn't have standing or education or background to grow up with, like, just sets you up in a completely different place to be in life.
Mm-hmm. Now, it sounds like there's a real true appreciation for what you have and what your family has given you, and just in general, just that appreciation of what is here.
Yeah.
Things could have been so different if your dad didn't come out here. Things could have been so different. Like I said, you could have been the village idiot back home, and now you have your own company, and you've kind of gone through the hard times to get to the good times, I would say, right?
Well, my dad suffered through most
Yeah.
of the hard times. I had maybe a sneeze of hard times or
Mm-hmm.
struggle in that process. But yeah, it's been a really fun adventure. I started my company in my parents' attic 15 years ago. I finished school, finished college, and when you're number 7 out of 9 kids, you work your rear end off to.
Mm-hmm.
I was a youth pastor, and I was working full time outside of that as a consultant, doing IT consulting and setting up, computer systems, network security, doing web development. Back when Space Jam was the coolest website.
Yeah.
And so at that point in time, I finished school, and like my church environment job was kind of fell apart, and I needed to make a pretty quick switch. And so I just decided to start a web development shop in my parents' attic and hired my first employee on day 2 and hired the second one on day 3. And, you kind of start growing from there. We quickly outgrew the attic and moved into an office in Whittier, and then grew into a bigger office in Orange, and went to Irvine, and now we're here. So it's this, you keep growing through iterations and seeing where the market shifts, and you continue to evolve in that. It kind of you find yourself looking back and kind of smiling or chuckling, realizing that there's all of this growth that's happened both personally and professionally. It's not what I would have necessarily planned on day one. I obviously didn't, but it's been a fun journey getting here at the very least.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And what kind of made you, and you might have touched on it, but what made you just click and say, you know what, I want to do this myself?
Well, I think at that point the economy had just taken the tech bubble just crashed, nobody was hiring, and the jobs that were out there were so entry level or low paying. I don't think people appreciated what the internet was intended to become. So at that point people were building basically fancy online brochures, and that was their intent with it. And so I, at that point, was spending most of my time convincing people what they should do in order to actually do the job for them. So they would have this idea that they would come to us for, and so I ended up spending hours and hours with just giving away free strategy in order to do the actual development work. So we flipped that. We stopped making development be our primary objective and made putting together the appropriate growth strategy, digital strategy for that company. So in the early days, we had a lot of work through other agencies as we were no one knew what to do with digital, so we had a lot of big traditional agencies that would come to us and say, hey, why don't you build this website over here? Or we'd have business owners come and say, hey, I know I need a website. I have no clue what it's supposed to do, but let's actually do that. And so we've been chasing this kind of fad idea where every time there's this promise of something that's supposed to be the magic pill. If I just get over this hurdle, I understand everything up until here, and if I just get over this hurdle, I'll be successful. Well, we've been 5, 6, 7 steps beyond that, and we know that there's no magic pill. Yes, that's where your horizon stops. You can't see beyond that. So our goal is to actually get them past that and realize that there's still a lot of hard work after that process. So back when we started, it was building a great website, and then it's building an app, and then it became digital strategy or digital marketing, and then you got SEO, SEM, hey, we can spend out lots of money on ads, isn't this going to be phenomenal? And then it becomes inbound marketing strategy. Now it's marketing automation. And there's always this latest fad that you keep chasing. And for us, it's pulling that back and coming back to fundamentals and saying, how are we going to tie this back to profit and loss? How do we actually drive growth for the organization? And we're going to use a lot of technology and tools to do that. But to us, technology should enable a relationship. It should facilitate an efficient growth model. It shouldn't replace it, right? So to answer your question, we got into this not because we wanted to be something radically different. It's that at the core, what we wanted to not do is sell snake oil. Yes, fundamentally how people think and operate and live in this digital world has changed. People have shorter attention spans, and people chase lots of shiny objects. In many regard, I want to do my job with a lot of integrity, and so doing that means quite often telling the customer, I think you have this concept wrong, or we can absolutely spend this money, but I don't think it's going to get the result that you're looking for. And so we take as much ownership with our clients as they do with their own money. We want to ask what success looks like, and sometimes it's the CEO doesn't like the website, right? And so if we're working to please an audience of one, that's a really easy thing to do. You just have to define that and not assume other objectives into it. But if it's really growth that we're chasing after, then we have to be as involved with that client in understanding what all of their assumptions are in the process, having great dialogue about challenging those assumptions, and then putting together a model where we can test those in a small way before you spend $50,000 on a project. So if the assumption is, hey, we need a better website because it's not optimized for mobile, then can we build a landing page for $1,000 to prove out that idea before we go spend $50,000 revamping your whole website? So yeah, it's a really long-winded answer.
I like it because it sounds like to me that you're more than just a service. A lot of us nowadays, and you can put the millennial, always looking at what's next and always looking at the shiny object, and I fall victim to that all the time. And it's good to know that there's, companies like you and what you've created is you kind of just take that step back and let's get back to square one. You might be chasing square 6, but you've missed 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's bring it back, kind of. And so what I would say to that is, you're more than just a service. You want to be a partner.
Yeah. So the partner conversation is really interesting to me. So the way that we would phrase it is slightly different. So I think the companies that come in looking for a partnership, to me, there's a few different levels. So there's the I want to start out when we start most of our engagements at the expert level. You're bringing us in because we've done this before, or we've seen 5 or 6 steps beyond where you can see now. And so you're listening to our advice. We have a really great process that comes into play. And there's this really, like, you have a painful problem to solve, and there's enough pain involved that you're willing to do whatever it takes to solve it. When the relationship shifts a little bit, the pain kind of eases, you're starting to solve that problem, you're in partnership mode. And we love partnership mode, but to us, partnership mode is such, like, you have to be really attentive on both ends of the equation. Where we start out being, where that problem is hard to solve, it should get easier over time to continue in maintaining it. So our objective is not to slip into vendor mode, right? And that's where expertise gets eroded, and all you're doing is taking an order from a client. In our space, an agency is a really expensive vendor. And so if there isn't pain associated around that, what most people do in this space is they treat the marketing process like a black box to the client. We do all of these activities, but we don't really tell them how we do them, or why we do them, or how we're measuring if they're working or not. And so that business owner is left with this idea of, like, if I cut the cord on this relationship, then all of my growth may go away. And so we're left with these ever-escalating buckets of budgets that are related to marketing, but they're not tied back to the overall growth of the organization. So I would rather sit in the expert position. I would rather tell the client, this is what you need to do. This is how to measure success. This is the experiments to run in this stage. This is how we're going to see if it's actually working or not. If they want to retain us at the partner level, meaning we're doing it with them, right? And that may mean we bring on a marketing manager off of our team that functions as the marketing manager for that organization. And so they live with 1 foot firmly planted in that company, and then 1 foot firmly planted with our team to make sure the execution happens cleanly. That's the partnership level. And then at some point when we start to drift into that, like, vendor stage, you could probably just hire somebody internally and do this cheaper. You understand what's going on. This isn't really a pain point for you anymore. I would rather fire myself early in that process because they don't need us. So our average engagement lasts anywhere from a year, 3 to 4 years. And our objective is actually to teach our clients what we're doing and why we're doing it so that none of this is a mystery. If they want to hire internally and they got it, we're going to set them free and be really excited. We have some clients that just walk through what we call a lean marketing framework, where we map out and build out the overall framework of how they should be doing marketing, and then they execute it with their internal team. We love those types of projects, right? Because we're able to sit in that expert level, tell them exactly what needs to happen, and then come in maybe quarterly or annually and just do a reassessment. Hey, those things are working, you're achieving your goals, this is really great. Or these 3 or 4 things are clearly duds, stop it. And we get to maintain at that level of expertise.
Awesome. No, I like that. You take a really, really cool approach to this whole thing, and I really, really enjoy that. And I'm glad that we're capturing this because it is something different. I like that.
It's interesting to me because I see that most people's marketing process, what people get really excited about in marketing, they're not really that helpful when you come to them. Like, the 90% of America's businesses, I would even say 95, 98% of America's businesses, have very little use for the large, huge, shiny things that we talk about in marketing. Brand marketing campaigns where you're spending gobs of money that's what we call branding activities in this space. That's what most people do, which is hilarious to me. Anything that we can't tie back to profit and loss, we just attribute as brand marketing. That's not helpful. So one of the things that I would argue is that for most businesses in the United States, most people in this SMB space, every marketing activity should have some measure of being tracked back to profit and loss. And if you can't conceive of a way to do that, don't do that marketing activity. And so, there's things like AdWords. We know we should be spending tons of money on it. If you don't have a clear way of measuring through how that click comes into a lead conversion that goes into a sale, if you can't tie those dots together, you probably should take a pause and consider not spending money on Google AdWords. All of these things are really important, and Google loves this idea of renting marketing to America's businesses. But you have to realize that that's what's happening. This idea of like online ads, PPC, this idea of SEO, we love to think that that's our investment, we own it. It's not. Google owns the platform, we're renting it from them. And even if you're not spending, writing Google a check for SEO, you're essentially writing a check by the investment of your time and maybe a consultant in writing Google a check, because they're the ones that control that platform. So you have to view that as, what do I actually own versus what am I renting from third parties? And then what am I earning from other people, whether that's press mentions or PR or any of that other stuff. You have to look at this as a cohesive structure and say, what are leads coming in at and what kind of value does that create?
I like it. You have a really good process laid out. And
I do in my head.
Well, yeah, but it sounds like you have a really good process for your customers. And so I appreciate you sharing your story and sharing why you created, 454, and also just how you value partnership and how you kind of really, really understand the process. It's not just, hey, put this, make it this color, and it's going to get you views and this and that. There's a real process to it. So I thank you for sharing that and sharing that with everybody. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put Paul's contact info below. Reach out to him. They're experts here, and they're really going to lay it out and help you with the process of your marketing. So, Paul, thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you for your space, and I really, really enjoy what you've done and what you've created. I value and appreciate what you do.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All righty.
Fun being here.
Awesome. Cheers, everybody.